Top 5 Infrastructure Projects That Built America. The United States Congress is en route to doing something truly incredible, passing a major bill along bipartisan lines. In mid-August, the U.S. Senate, a body currently split 50-50 between Republicans and Democrats, and which requires 60 votes to pass most legislation, passed a $1 trillion infrastructure bill to update the country's roads, bridges, tunnels, and water systems. The House voted to advance the bill, setting it up for final passage. While I'd settle for not feeling like I'm in an earthquake every time I drive on local highways, America has a long history of breaking ground on groundbreaking infrastructure projects, ones that helped shape the nation. Here are 5 in chronological order. Number 5. The Hoover Dam, 1936. Like the Los Angeles Aqueduct, the Hoover Dam was born of the necessity to first tame the Wild West in order to settle it on a manifest destiny-level scale. While best known as a power plant, the massive dam also served to help control regular, devastating flooding along the 1,450-mile Colorado River, and, in doing so, diverting its waters to arid areas that otherwise would have been unable to support significant population growth. The thing is, in a word, massive. More than 7 stories high and nearly a quarter-mile long, the Hoover Dam required enough concrete to construct a 4-foot-wide sidewalk around the entire world. At its top, the dam is 45 feet thick, equivalent to a 4-lane highway. At its base, it is an impenetrable 660 feet thick, nearly double the length of a soccer pitch. Incredibly, the Hoover Dam was completed in just 5 years, about the same time ill-defined, questionably necessary, and unquestionably disruptive roadwork has been occurring near my New Jersey home. The dam's pace, however, came with a price. As many as 138 people died during its construction. The Hoover Dam's impact was immense and immediate importance exemplified by the fact that, before America entered World War II, a Nazi plot to blow it up was fortunately foiled. The Third Reich's goal was to cut off crucial electricity to California's burgeoning airplane manufacturing industry, imperiling America's ability to defend itself or wage war. Number 4. Interstate Highway System, 1956. Soon after the first Model T rolled off the assembly line in 1908, it became apparent the car would dominate American culture. In 1916, the Federal Aid Road Act authorized construction of interconnecting local roadways. 5 years later, a follow-up law expanded the effort to include major thoroughfares. In 1926, the first numbered highways appeared, establishing modern navigation route guidelines. But the most ambitious and consequential roadway construction commenced when President Dwight Eisenhower signed the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956, commonly known as the Interstate Highway Act. The goal was standardization and interconnectivity on a national level. A departure from stop-and-go travel, the new highways were controlled-access expressways with no at-grade crossings, abandoning intersections in favor of over- and underpasses. The initiative was not without controversy. In densely populated areas, some new freeways required demolishing well-established neighborhoods. In New York, the powerful urban planner Robert Moses had designs on a 10-lane highway cutting straight through Lower Manhattan. Fortunately, those plans were thwarted. Another consequence was unforeseen, as convenient roadways sprung up around major urban centers. Middle-class Americans, most of whom were white, began an exodus to commuter communities outside city limits. Known as white flight, the rise of wide-scale American suburbia paralleled with downturns in many major cities. Still, the system's benefits: efficient travel, less congested roads, decreased commercial shipping costs, and times modernized the culture and economy in ways both necessary and inevitable. Number 3. National Parks, Roadways and Recreation Areas, 1956. As interstate highways crisscrossed the country, Americans took to the roads like never before. This newfound geographical freedom coincided with unprecedented leisure time, a result of the post-World War II economic boom that gave labor unions and individual professionals leverage to secure higher wages and vacation time for workers. Still, a decade or so away from affordable commercial airline travel, Americans packed their bags, hopped in their cars, and drove. And a hell of a lot of them ventured to America's proudest treasures, its national parks. By 1955, annual national parks visitation was 56 million, up from just 21 million in 1941. Unfortunately, the parks simply weren't ready for them. Overcrowding and scant recreation areas mixed with a dearth of navigable roads within the parks. Accessible areas became littered and polluted while inaccessible areas remained, well, inaccessible. So in 1956, National Park Service Director Colin Worth proposed a 10-year plan called Mission 66, after its planned completion date, that invested hundreds of millions of dollars in wide-scale infrastructure improvements. The effort dramatically increased not only nature-friendly access roads, but staffing, maintenance, and visitor centers. In a nation with a less than stellar record of protecting pristine wilderness, the US government successfully saved national parklands while helping Americans visit them more enjoyably and sustainably. Number 2. Nuclear power plants, 1958. Surprisingly, the US was actually third in the nuclear power plant game, behind the Soviet Union and the United Kingdom. However, the US quickly became the world's foremost generator of nuclear energy, peaking in 2012 with 104 functioning reactors. Today, America's 96 operational reactors are still the most on Earth, and, at nearly 100,000 megawatts, produces about 20% of the country's electricity. Despite reasonable safety concerns including the creation of radioactive waste and, of course, the possibility of a Chernobyl or 3 Mile Island-esque meltdown, the proliferation of nuclear power is more important than mere electricity generation. The successful construction and operation of the vast majority of nuclear power plants taught the world a lesson that, in the here and now, is invaluable, that energy can be produced with zero carbon emissions. As countries across the world try to expand green energy production, the US has a long way to go if it wants to lead a sustainable energy surge necessary to avoid the worst effects of climate change. Currently, America generates only 20% of its energy through renewable resources like hydro, wind, and solar. By comparison, Iceland and Norway generate all of their electricity using renewable energy resources, and nearly 50 other nations generate over 50% of their electricity from renewables. Recently, US President Joe Biden announced plans to drastically increase renewable production, including intentions to generate 40% of the country's electricity via solar energy by 2035. Number 1. Vaccine manufacturing and distribution, 2020. The effort to develop effective vaccines against a contagious novel virus is among medical science's finest accomplishments to date. But having an effective vaccine and delivering it are two very different things. And regardless of anyone's opinions of former President Trump's overall handling of the coronavirus situation, his Operation Warp Speed was wildly successful. First and foremost, Operation Warp Speed's mission was securing sufficient doses of an eventual vaccine. Despite globalists screeching over vaccine hoarding, a nation's government's first duty is to protect its own people, period. But past that, the program provided additional funds for two things: US-based vaccine manufacturing and nationwide distribution. Regarding the former, by March 2021 the US had produced more than 100 million vaccine doses, second only to Communist China, whose vaccine, called Sinovac, is comparative garbage. The US also stood out in its ability to distribute and administer the vaccines. For the two most common vaccines, next-gen concoctions from Pfizer and Moderna called mRNA vaccines, this involved far-reaching cold chain support and patient administration system. For example, the initial rules for Pfizer's vaccine necessitated it be kept at -70 degrees Celsius colder than the South Pole, and, once thawed, used in 5 days. America's exemplary medical infrastructure and human resources oversight helped it far outpace other first world countries' vaccination rates in the weeks and months following initial FDA emergency approval.